Drummerly.com Unlimited Drama Series.
The fluorescent lights in the hospital operating room hummed like angry wasps above my head. I was supposed to be going under for a simple hernia repair, nothing major, just a routine procedure that would have me back on my feet in a week. The anesthesia mask descended toward my face, and I could hear the familiar voices of my wife Ava and my father Ray somewhere in the background, talking to the nurses about post-op care. That's when my world imploded. I slept with his dad. Ava's voice drifted through the haze of medication, clear as a church bell on Sunday morning. Twice. Oh God, I'm so sorry. The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. Through the fog of pre-surgical drugs, I could see my father standing there. That same easy grin he'd worn my entire life, plastered across his weathered face. But now it looked different. Now it looked like the smile of a man who'd been keeping the world's worst secret. I wanted to sit up, to scream, to demand answers, but the anesthesia was pulling me under like quicksand. The last thing I remember before everything went dark was the sound of my own heart monitor beeping faster and faster, matching the rage that was building in my chest. When I woke up 3 hours later, they were both there, acting like nothing had happened. Ava fussed over my blankets and asked the nurse about pain medication schedules. Ray stood by the window, hands in his pockets, making small talk about the weather and how the Cubs were doing this season. "How are you feeling, honey?" Ava leaned over me, her blonde hair falling across her shoulder in that way that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made me want to throw up. "Like I've been cut open," I said, my voice hoarse from the breathing tube. She laughed, that tinkling sound she made when she thought something was cute. "Well, you have been. Dr. Peterson says everything went perfectly. You'll be back to normal in no time." "Normal, right." Ray stepped closer to the bed. "Good to see you awake, son. You had us worried there for a minute." Son. The word tasted like poison in my ears. I spent the next 2 days in that hospital bed, playing the part of the grateful patient, while my mind raced through every interaction, every moment, every time Ava had been working late, or Ray had dropped by the house when I wasn't there. The pieces were falling into place like dominoes, and the picture they formed made me sick to my stomach. When they finally discharged me, I went home to our little house on Maple Street, the one Ava and I had bought 3 years ago when we thought we were building something together. She helped me to the couch, propped pillows behind my back, and brought me soup and crackers, like the devoted wife she was supposed to be. "I'm going to take a few days off work to take care of you," she said, settling into the armchair across from me. "That's not necessary," I told her. "I can manage." "Don't be silly, Mike. You need someone here." "Mike." My name sounded strange coming from her mouth now, like she was trying on a costume that didn't quite fit. That evening, while Ava was in the shower, I made a phone call to my best friend Jules, who owned a bar downtown called the Rusty Anchor. "How'd the surgery go?" Jules asked. "Fine," I said, keeping my voice low. "Listen, I need a favor." "Shoot. You still know that guy who helps people with computer problems?" Jules was quiet for a moment. "What kind of computer problems?" "The kind where someone needs to recover information that might have been accidentally deleted." "Mike, what's going on?" I could hear the shower still running upstairs. "I'll tell you everything tomorrow. Can you help me or not?" "Yeah, I can help you, but this better not be about anything illegal." "It's not. I just need to know the truth about some things." The next morning, Ava kissed me goodbye and headed to her job at Meridian Tech, where she worked in human resources. She'd been there for 5 years, climbing the corporate ladder with the kind of determination that used to impress me. Now I wondered what else she'd been climbing. Jules showed up around noon with a laptop bag and a grim expression. "You look terrible," he said, settling onto the couch next to me. "I feel worse." I told him everything about the hospital, about what I'd heard, about the suspicions that had been eating at me for months. Jules whistled low. "That's rough, man. But are you sure you want to go down this road? Sometimes ignorance really is bliss." "I'm already down the road," I said. "I just need to know how far it goes." Jules was good with technology, better than most people realized. Within an hour, he'd helped me access Ava's cloud backup, the one she'd forgotten about when she changed her passwords last month. Her text messages, call logs, and photos were all there, synced automatically from her phone. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. The messages with Ray went back 8 months. Casual at first, then flirtatious, then explicit. They'd been meeting at his apartment across town, usually on Thursday afternoons when I was at work and she was supposed to be in meetings. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the messages with Connor Walsh, her coworker from the marketing department. Those went back even further, almost a year, and they were planning something. Not just the affair, but what came after. "We need to be careful," one of Connor's messages read. "If Mike finds out about us before we're ready, it could complicate things." "He won't find out," Ava had replied. "He's not that smart. Not that smart." The words burned like acid. There were messages with her friends too. Her little circle of corporate climbers, who met for drinks every Friday at some upscale wine bar downtown. They called themselves the Squad, and they talked about me like I was a problem to be solved. "Ava's getting tired of playing house with the blue-collar guy," one of them had written. "She needs someone who can keep up with her professionally." "Connor's perfect for her," another had replied. "He's got ambition. Mike's just Mike. Just Mike." The guy who'd worked double shifts at the construction company to help pay for Ava's graduate degree. The guy who'd supported her career moves even when they meant less time together. The guy who'd believed her when she said she loved him. Just Mike. I spent the rest of the afternoon reading through months of messages, each one another nail in the coffin of my marriage. By the time Ava got home, I had a pretty clear picture of what my life had really been for the past year. "How are you feeling?" she asked, hanging her coat in the closet. "Better," I said. "Much better." And I was, because now I knew exactly what I was dealing with. The next few days passed in a strange kind of clarity. I played the role of recovering husband, while secretly documenting every lie, every deception, every casual cruelty that Ava and her conspirators had been weaving around me. Jules helped me set up a system to automatically forward her messages to a secure email account, and I started building a comprehensive picture of just how deep this betrayal went. Ava's routine was predictable. She left for work at 8, came home around 6, and spent most evenings on her phone, texting with the Squad or Connor or sometimes my father. She thought she was being subtle, but once you know what to look for, the signs are impossible to miss. "I'm going out with the girls tonight," she announced on Friday, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. "Have fun," I said from the couch, not looking up from my book. She paused in the doorway. "You're being weird lately." "I'm recovering from surgery. Everything feels weird." She studied my face for a moment, then shrugged. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up." After she left, I called Jules. "She's meeting Connor tonight," I told him. "Not the Squad, Connor, at some hotel downtown." "How do you know?" "Because I've been reading her messages for a week. They think they're being clever, using code words and meeting at different places, but it's all there in black and white." Jules was quiet for a moment. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to give them what they want," which is a reason to underestimate me. The plan was simple. Over the next few weeks, I would gradually become everything they already thought I was: lazy, unambitious, slightly pathetic. I would give them the confidence to get sloppy, to make mistakes, to reveal more than they intended. I started small. I let the house get messier than usual. I ordered takeout instead of cooking. I spent more time on the couch, claiming my recovery was taking longer than expected. "Maybe you should see the doctor again," Ava suggested, after I'd spent 3 straight days in sweatpants. "I'm fine," I said, "just tired." She exchanged a look with Connor when he stopped by the house that weekend, supposedly to drop off some work documents for her. I watched them from the kitchen window as they stood in the driveway, their heads close together, talking in low voices. "Mike seems to be struggling," I heard Connor say. "He's always been a little fragile," Ava replied. "This surgery just made it worse." Fragile. Another word to add to my growing collection of insults. But their confidence was exactly what I needed. Within 2 weeks, they'd stopped being careful about their messages. The code words disappeared, the meeting locations became regular, and the conversations became more explicit about their plans for the future. "I think we should tell him soon," Connor wrote. "Get it over with." "Not yet." Ava replied. "I need to make sure I'm protected financially." and I want to document his behavior lately. It might help with the divorce. Document his behavior. They were building a case against me, painting me as unstable, unreliable, possibly even dangerous. The messages revealed a careful strategy to isolate me from friends, to make me look bad at work, to create a narrative that would justify whatever they planned to do next. That's when I decided it was time to start fighting back. The first shot was fired at Ava's company holiday party, a fancy affair at some downtown hotel ballroom. I hadn't planned to go, but Ava insisted, probably because leaving me at home would look suspicious. "Try to make a good impression," she said as we walked into the hotel. "These people are important to my career." "I'll do my best," I promised. The party was exactly what you'd expect from a tech company with too much money and too little taste. Ice sculptures, an open bar, a DJ playing music that was supposed to sound sophisticated but just sounded boring. Ava immediately disappeared into the crowd, working the room like the professional she was. I found a spot near the bar and watched her operate. She was good at this, I had to admit. Charming, confident, making everyone feel like they were the most important person in the room. It was the same act she'd been running on me for 3 years, and I'd fallen for it completely. Connor appeared at her side like a well-trained dog, bringing her drinks and laughing at her jokes and generally making it obvious to anyone with eyes that they were more than just coworkers. But the people at this party were either too polite or too oblivious to notice. I waited until the DJ took a break and the room got quiet. "Excuse me," I said, walking up to the microphone that had been set up for speeches. "I'd like to say a few words." The crowd turned toward me, including Ava, who looked suddenly pale. "I'm Mike Thompson," I said. "Some of you might know me as Ava's husband." A few polite smiles, some scattered applause. I wanted to thank everyone here for being so supportive of Ava's career. She's told me so much about how close she's gotten with her coworkers, especially in the marketing department. Ava was moving toward me now, probably planning to cut me off, but I kept talking. In fact, she's been working so closely with Connor Walsh that they've been putting in extra hours together almost every Thursday for the past 8 months, really going above and beyond the call of duty. The room was getting uncomfortable now. People were starting to look back and forth between me and Ava and Connor, who had turned an interesting shade of red. "Anyway," I continued, "I just wanted you all to know how much I appreciate the way you've welcomed Ava into your professional family. She's told me she feels more at home here than anywhere else." I set the microphone back in its stand and walked out of the ballroom, leaving behind a room full of confused faces and one very angry wife. Ava caught up with me in the hotel lobby. "What the hell was that?" she hissed. "Just thanking your coworkers," I said. "Was I not supposed to do that? You made it sound like Connor and I were what?" She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her trying to figure out how much I knew. "Nothing," she said finally. "You made it sound like nothing, but the way you said it was weird." "Everything's weird to you lately, Ava. Maybe the problem isn't what I'm saying. Maybe the problem is what you're hearing." We drove home in silence, but I could practically hear the gears turning in her head. She was going to have to make a decision soon, come clean or double down. Based on everything I'd learned about her over the past few weeks, I was pretty sure which way she'd go. I was right. The next morning, Ava was gone before I woke up. No note, no text message, just an empty space in the bed and the lingering smell of her perfume in the air. I checked the message forwarding system Jules had set up, and sure enough, she was in crisis mode. "Mike knows something," she'd texted Connor at 6 a.m. "We need to talk." "How much do you think he knows?" Connor had replied. "I'm not sure, but we need to be ready. I'm going to start documenting everything. His behavior, his mood swings, the way he's been acting since the surgery." They were accelerating their timeline, which meant I needed to accelerate mine. I called in sick to work and spent the morning at the Rusty Anchor with Jules, planning my next moves. "You sure you want to keep pushing this?" Jules asked, sliding a cup of coffee across the bar. "You could just divorce her and move on." "She's not just leaving me," I said. "She's trying to destroy me. The messages I showed you yesterday prove it. She's building a case that I'm unstable, unreliable, maybe even dangerous. She wants to take everything and make sure I look like the bad guy." Jules nodded grimly. He'd seen the messages too, the careful documentation of every time I'd stayed in bed late or ordered pizza instead of cooking or forgot to take out the trash. Individually, they were meaningless. Together, they painted a picture of a man falling apart. "So what's the plan?" "I'm going to give her exactly what she's afraid of," I said. "A husband who knows the truth and isn't going to go quietly. The first phase was psychological warfare. I started leaving little hints that I knew more than I was letting on. A meaningful look when she mentioned working late. A casual question about how Connor was doing. Nothing direct, nothing she could confront me about. Just enough to keep her off balance. The second phase was more direct. Connor lived in a fancy condo downtown. The kind of place that screamed successful young professional, with its floor-to-ceiling windows and granite countertops. I'd never been there, but I'd seen plenty of photos in Ava's messages. She loved taking pictures of herself in his bed, in his kitchen, on his balcony overlooking the city. I waited in the parking garage until I saw his silver BMW pull in. Connor Walsh was exactly what you'd expect from someone who'd steal another man's wife. Tall, well-dressed, the kind of guy who probably used hair product that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Mike? He looked genuinely surprised to see me. What are you doing here? We need to talk, I said. He glanced around the parking garage nervously. Look.
I deleted her number! You deleted it? She tagged you in a photo an hour ago. My everything thing with a—
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
If this is about work, you should probably call Ava. It's not about work. The color drained from his face. I don't know what you think you know, but I know you've been sleeping with my wife for almost a year. I know you meet every Thursday at your apartment. I know you've been planning to get her to leave me. I know about the messages, the photos, the whole thing. Connor opened his mouth, then closed it, then opened it again like a fish gasping for air. I also know, I continued, that you've been telling your friends about it, bragging about how easy it was to steal her away from the blue-collar guy, making bets about how long it would take. Mike, listen. No, you listen. I don't care about you and Ava. If she wants to be with someone else, that's her choice. But I do care about the way you've been talking about me. Like I'm some kind of joke. I stepped closer, and Connor instinctively backed up against his car. I'm not a joke, I said quietly. And I'm not going to disappear quietly so you two can ride off into the sunset. If you want my wife, you're going to have to earn her. And that means dealing with me first. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you, this isn't over. I walked away, leaving him standing there in the parking garage, probably wondering if he should call the police. But I hadn't threatened him, not really. I just made it clear that I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. That evening, Ava came home with a new attitude. Gone was the guilty, nervous energy she'd been carrying around since the holiday party. Now she was angry. Connor told me about your little visit today, she said, standing in the living room with her arms crossed. Did he? What did he say? He said you threatened him. I had a conversation with him. If he felt threatened by that conversation, maybe he should examine his own conscience. Mike, this has to stop. Whatever you think you know. I know everything, Ava. The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating, trying to decide whether to keep lying or finally tell the truth. She chose option 3. Attack. Fine, she said. You want to know the truth? Yes, I've been seeing Connor. Yes, I'm going to leave you. And yes, it's because you're not the man I thought you were when I married you. What kind of man did you think I was? Someone with ambition. Someone who wanted more out of life than a construction job and a house in the suburbs. Someone who could keep up with me. Someone like Connor. Yes, someone like Connor. He has goals, Mike. He has plans. He's going somewhere. And I'm not. No, you're not. You're content to stay exactly where you are forever, and I'm not. I want more. I nodded slowly. Well, at least now we're being honest. So what happens now? She asked. Now we see what you're really made of, I said. Because this isn't going to be as easy as you think it is. She laughed, but it sounded forced. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm not just going to roll over and let you and Connor destroy me. If you want a war, Ava, you've got one. The war began in earnest the next morning. Ava had spent the night at Connor's place, but not before making it clear that she expected me to be reasonable about the divorce. Reasonable, in her vocabulary, meant giving her everything she wanted without a fight. I had other plans. Jules had been busy while I was having my confrontation with Connor. His friend Manny, who worked in IT security, had helped us dig deeper into the digital trail that Ava and Connor had been leaving behind. What we found was a goldmine of evidence that they'd been planning this for months. Look at this, Jules said, pointing to his laptop screen. We were sitting in his bar after hours, the only light coming from the neon beer signs on the walls. They've been talking about your finances, your job, even your medical records from the surgery. I leaned over to read the messages. Ava had been systematically gathering information about our assets, my income, my health insurance, everything she'd need for a divorce proceeding. But more than that, she'd been sharing it all with Connor and the squad, turning my private life into entertainment for her friends. She's been planning this since before your surgery, Manny said. Maybe longer. This isn't some spontaneous thing with Connor. This is a calculated campaign. What about my father? I asked. Where does he fit in? Jules pulled up another set of messages. That's where it gets interesting. Looks like Ava approached him first, not the other way around. She was using him to get information about you, your childhood, your insecurities. The physical relationship was just a bonus. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. She was studying me. Like a lab rat, Manny confirmed. Learning your weaknesses so she could exploit them later. The messages painted a picture of a woman who had turned manipulation into an art form. She'd been playing a long game, positioning herself to come out of the divorce, looking like the victim of an unstable husband, while walking away with as much of our shared assets as possible. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd documented everything. Can we use this in court? I asked. Some of it, Manny said. But the real value isn't legal, it's social. These messages show exactly what kind of person she is, what kind of person Connor is, what kind of people her friends are. What are you thinking? Jules asked. I was thinking about the holiday party, about how quickly the mood in that room had shifted when I'd implied something was going on between Ava and Connor. I was thinking about how much these people cared about their professional reputations, their social standing, their carefully constructed images. I'm thinking it's time to show everyone who they really are, I said. The plan took 2 weeks to set up. Manny helped me create a secure website that looked like a private social media platform. Jules helped me craft the invitations, making them look like they were coming from Ava herself. The guest list included everyone from Meridian Tech, the squad, my father, Connor's friends, even some of our neighbors. The invitation was simple. Join me for a private celebration as I start the next chapter of my life. Password protected for privacy. Most people ignored it, but enough clicked through to make it worthwhile. What they found was a carefully curated collection of screenshots, photos, and audio recordings that told the complete story of Ava and Connor's affair, their plans for my destruction, and their casual cruelty toward everyone in their lives. The crown jewel was a recording I'd made the week before. Ava had been on the phone with one of the squad, discussing strategy for the divorce, and she'd been particularly vicious. Mike's pathetic, her voice said through the laptop speakers. He actually thinks he deserves better than this, like he's some kind of prize. I mean, look at him. Construction worker, high school education, drives a 10-year-old truck. What did I ever see in him? You saw a stepping stone, her friend had replied. Someone to pay the bills while you figured out what you really wanted. Exactly. And now I know what I want. Connor's got everything Mike doesn't. Money, education, class. He's going places. What about Mike's feelings? Ava had laughed. What about them? He'll get over it. Men like him always do. They find some other woman to take care of them and pretend they're happy. The recording was devastating, but it wasn't the worst thing on the site. The worst thing was the messages between Connor and his friends, where he'd been sharing intimate photos of Ava and making crude jokes about her body, her intelligence, her desperation to climb the social ladder. She's trying so hard to be something she's not, one message read. It's actually kind of sad. Just enjoy the ride, Connor had replied. Women like her are fun for a while, but you don't marry them. By noon on the day the site went live, my phone was ringing constantly. Ava called 17 times in the first hour, each message more frantic than the last. Mike, what have you done? Take that site down right now. This is illegal. I'm calling the police. But it wasn't illegal. Everything on the site was true, and most of it had been willingly shared through digital platforms that made it technically public record. Manny had been careful about that. Connor called too, but his approach was different. Look, Mike, we can work this out. Take the site down, and we'll forget this whole thing happened. Ava doesn't have to know you and I talked. Too late for that. By evening, the site had been shared across social media, forwarded through email chains, and discussed in every break room at Meridian Tech. The squad had turned on each other as their own private messages were revealed. Connor's boss had seen the photos he'd been sharing. My father had seen the messages where Ava called him a pathetic old man who's probably grateful any woman would touch him. The social media explosion was swift and merciless. Within 48 hours, Ava had been placed on administrative leave from Meridian Tech, pending an investigation into unprofessional conduct. Connor had been fired outright. The squad had disbanded in a flurry of accusations and counter-accusations. But I wasn't done yet. The annual Riverside Community Festival happened every Labor Day weekend, transforming our quiet neighborhood into a 3-day carnival of food trucks, local bands, and small-town politics. It was the kind of event where everyone who was anyone showed up to be seen, to network, to maintain their place in the social hierarchy. It was perfect. I'd been planning this moment for weeks, ever since the website had detonated Ava and Connor's carefully constructed lives. They'd both been laying low since then, avoiding public appearances and trying to manage the fallout from their exposed messages. But the festival was too big, too public, too important for people like them to miss entirely. I was right. They showed up separately, of course, trying to maintain the fiction that they weren't together. But I spotted them both within the first hour. Ava was working the crowd near the main stage, trying to rebuild her damaged reputation one conversation at a time. Connor was keeping to the edges, probably hoping to avoid any more public embarrassment. My father was there too, looking older than I remembered, staying close to the beer tent and avoiding eye contact with anyone who might have seen the website. Jules found me near the dunking booth, where a steady stream of teenagers were trying to drop the high school principal into a tank of water. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I'm sure. Because once you do this, there's no going back. You'll have burned every bridge in this town." "The bridges were already burned," I said. "I'm just making sure everyone can see the smoke." The main stage was set up for local politicians to make speeches, community leaders to announce upcoming projects, that sort of thing. I'd been watching the schedule, waiting for the right moment. When Mayor Patterson finished his remarks about the new library funding, I made my move. "Excuse me," I said, walking up to the microphone. "I'd like to say a few words." The crowd was smaller than it had been at Ava's holiday party. Maybe 200 people scattered across the grass in front of the stage. But these were my neighbors, my coworkers, people I'd known for years. Their opinions mattered more than some corporate strangers in fancy suits. "My name is Mike Thompson," I began. "Most of you know me. I've lived in this neighborhood for 8 years, worked construction on half the houses you can see from here, coached Little League at the park down the street." Scattered nods from the crowd. Ava had appeared near the back, her face pale but determined. "I wanted to talk to you today about truth," I continued. "About the difference between who people pretend to be and who they really are." More people were gathering now, drawn by the serious tone in my voice and the growing tension in the crowd. 3 months ago, I thought I knew the people in my life. I thought I knew my wife, my father, my friends. I thought I understood the rules we all live by: loyalty, honesty, respect for other people's feelings. Connor had appeared next to Ava, and they were having a whispered argument about something. But I was wrong. I found out that some people see those rules as suggestions. They see other people's trust as a weakness to be exploited. They see kindness as stupidity, and loyalty as an invitation to betrayal. "Mike, stop this," Ava called out from the crowd. "You're embarrassing yourself." I looked directly at her. "No, Ava, I'm embarrassing you. There's a difference." A murmur went through the crowd. People were starting to understand that this wasn't just a random speech. "My wife has been cheating on me for almost a year," I said, my voice carrying clearly across the festival grounds. Not just with one person, but with multiple people, including my own father. The murmur became a gasp. People turned to look at Ava, at my father near the beer tent, at Connor standing beside her. "But that's not the worst part," I continued. "The worst part is that she's been documenting my behavior, building a case to make me look unstable and unreliable so she could justify leaving me and taking everything we built together." "This is slander," Connor shouted. "You can't prove any of this." I smiled. "Actually, I can, because she documented everything. Every cruel comment, every manipulative scheme, every casual betrayal. She wrote it all down, thinking she was being smart, thinking she was building a case against me." I pulled out my phone and held it up. "Would you like me to read some of the messages? The ones where she calls me pathetic? The ones where she and her friends laugh about how easy it was to fool me? The ones where she talks about using my father to get information about my weaknesses?" The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. "Or maybe you'd prefer to hear the messages between Connor and his friends, where he shares intimate photos of my wife and jokes about how desperate she is to climb the social ladder? Connor started pushing through the crowd toward the stage, his face red with anger. "You son of a, I said, raising my voice to cut him off. We could talk about how they've been planning this whole thing for months, how they see all of you, all of us, as entertainment, as people to be used and discarded when they're no longer useful." Ava was crying now, but whether from shame or rage, I couldn't tell. "The truth is," I said, looking out over the crowd of neighbors and friends and strangers, "some people think they're better than the rest of us. They think they deserve more, and they're willing to destroy anyone who gets in their way. They think they're smarter, more sophisticated, more important." I paused, letting the words sink in. "But here's what they don't understand. Character isn't about how much money you make, or where you went to school, or what kind of car you drive. Character is about how you treat people when you think nobody's watching. It's about keeping your promises, even when it's inconvenient. It's about taking responsibility for your actions instead of blaming everyone else." Connor had reached the stage and was trying to climb up, but Jules and Manny were there to block him. "My wife wanted a divorce," I said. "She could have asked for one. She could have been honest about her feelings, about what she wanted, about who she'd become. Instead, she chose to lie, to cheat, to manipulate, to destroy." I looked directly at Ava. "You wanted to paint me as the villain in this story. You wanted everyone to see me as the problem, the obstacle, the thing standing between you and your happiness." The crowd was completely still, waiting. "Congratulations," I said. "You got your wish. I am the villain now. But I'm not your villain anymore. I'm my own villain, and that means I get to write